Coming up in this video, or even Glasgow Margaret Ulrich Thatcher himself. So, and welcome back folks to Noob-Splaining. My name is Wool. In this series of videos, the good, the bad and the stupid, we're going to take a look at, funny enough, the good, the bad and the stupid of each individual faction. The main difference with these scripts is I've never seen them before, so get ready for my live reactions as we go along. But as always, welcome back to Noob-Splaining, a channel dedicated to two types of people. Those who know little to nothing about 40k and want to learn, and those of us who are more, shall we say, seasoned and like to poke fun at the absolute absurdity of it all. Like I said, this is a blind read, so if you enjoy this video, please buy Victor a coffee, as I sure as hell don't feed him, and besides, he's shackled in my basement along with Gaz the Orc. Which reminds me, I've had a few escape attempts recently, so I've had to install a basement monitor system. Let's see what they're talking about now, shall we?
Boss, the cockroaches have rallied, they surrounded us.
I think a couple of cockroaches can be dealt with by an Orc and an Australian, even though they are shackled up. Right, let's crack on, shall we? This week, on the good, the bad and the stupid, it's the Orcs. The good. So, I'll just launch in and put it all on Front Street. Orcs are fun. Yes, I know, Pancras No Work started his do or don't video the same way, but it's really hard to talk about the Orcs without at least mentioning it, because Games Workshop likes to take concepts and stretch them to their logical, more often illogical, extremes, and when you look at the Orcs, it's like the concept they decided to slather in thicker than the crust on your mother's undies was fun. So, sue me. While all the other factions and races within the setting are all busting their asses with things like climbing to the top of their respective political structures, fighting desperately to survive in an age of brutality, or going on galaxy-wide scavenger hunts for ancient MacGuffins. The Orcs are just looking for one simple thing: to have a good laugh. Unfortunately, for the puny races of the galaxy, an Orc's idea of fun is basically to cause as much violence and mayhem over as wide an area as possible. But goddamn, if it doesn't look fun while they're doing it. Really, it's like what would happen if you smashed the cartoonish ways of the Looney Tunes into the visual style of Mad Max. 40k has always been a very bipolar setting. Silly and serious have always gone hand in hand, but no other faction pulls it off as well as the Orcs. Don't believe me? Go visit a Vox in the Void channel and listen to The Chop Shop and The Skull Takers. The former story is told from the perspective of the Orcs and just sounds like a good laugh. The second is from the perspective of Guardsmen. It describes a scene where the Orc chews the meat from a man's head. It's a tonal shift hard enough to give you whiplash, and it feels right on the Orc. Yet another massive plus in favour of the Jolly Green Giants is if you're anything like me and have an addiction to my god, why can't I talk? Words are not that difficult. If you're anything like me and have an addiction to converting and kit bashing, then they have unquestionably the best army to fiddle around with. This is true. I can't tell you how many tanks, walkers, guns and whatever else I fucked up the kit bash for and managed to still turn into a usable tabletop piece for the Orcs, because everything in their roster already looks like it's been haphazardly thrown together and held with tape and dreams, because it all fucking is. Sounds like my last Ford. So if you're interested in trying any sort of sculpting, kit bashing or whatever, here's my hot tip. Go to your local hobby store and buy a box of Orcs, whatever you want. Could be a tank, a squad of boys, or even Glasgow Margaret Ulrich Thatcher himself. Then go and buy a box of either Battletech or some World War II either stuff that will scale approximately for whatever Orc you've got, and some liquid green stuff. Finally, just go home and smash that shit together, and you'll be amazed how god-awful conglomeration of green flesh and random metal somehow looks right at home with the rest of your army. It fucking does! It does, I can't argue with this. You can literally kit bash anything onto an Orc and it just looks orky. So, if anybody gives it a go, jump on the Noob-Splaining Discord and share your Orc abominations with us. Oh, that reminds me, I knew I meant to say that in the intro. I've got a Discord. The link should be in the description. Come and join us. The last point I want to make about Orcs, before moving on, and I could go all day, but the series is GBS, not GGG, is really just an extension on the fun aspect, and that is how fun it is just to let loose with a loud as fuck Orc war cry. And just how fun it is to just let loose with a loud as fuck Orc war cry. I mean, who doesn't love just letting loose with a big ol' wah at the start of a game? It really sets the feel and gets you into the mood to crump. You really got to put your back into it though. A bit like this. See, isn't that just like food for the soul? incredibly loud and violent food, but food nonetheless. They're bad. Have you ever gone to have what you have thought was going to be a quick game of 40k? You know, just one of those casual hour-long deals where you get in, roll some dice and get it over with fast because you have some place to be after you. And you stupidly forgot that your average orc shooting phase takes approximately one entire aeon to fucking wrap up. That's the average orc experience. If you decide to have a shooty army, and let's face it, the orcs are actually quite good at being a shooty army, despite the fact that they are primarily sold in lore and so on as essentially being an army of slightly more intelligent but less violent Geordies. That's people from Newcastle if any of you are unaware. Margaret Thatcher may have been the inspiration for Gaz himself, but I think orcs overall were the conclusion of the thought experiment: what if we made a Geordie more civilised? The reigning spade did indeed fall mainly on the plain. My god, how did I manage to say that in one? But yes, the drawback is that a large part of any given game is spent rolling and re-rolling the hundreds of shot even a moderate orc patrol can bring to bear, just like how most of any given time in Newcastle would be spent dodging thrown bottles of empty Nuki Brown. That's Newcastle Brown Ale for those that don't know. But yes, if you're an orc player, you need to make sure you have bought all the D6. I'd be remiss if I didn't also include the building painting aspect of collecting orcs. There's a trap that many new hobbyists fall into where they think, hey, orcs would be great for me because I'm new, I can't paint very well yet, and the haphazard style of the orc would be perfect for me to hide that. Well, let me tell you, you're fucking wrong. That's right, I lured you into a false sense of security by including kit bashing in the good section, but guess what? Painting orcs fucking sucks for noobs, so it evens out. That's because you need every bit of green paint within a 40-mile radius. On the surface, you think that orcs are a great army to paint as a beginner, but look closer at what the sculpts are actually made up of. There's exposed skin, lots of corroded brush metals, wires, leathers, fabrics and lies. Unlike those Space Marine kits that can be made to look pretty good after doing nothing but a bit of layering and or glazing, because it's all just smooth armour plates, the orcs have too many different textures to coast by like that. So you'd need to know how to highlight, recess shade, dry brush, do rust work and maybe even glow effects before it looks like the mini is living up to its true visual potential. Basically, the orcs are an army with an incredibly high ceiling for painting. And if you don't live up to that quality, it sticks out more obviously than an erection in a gynecologist's office. Oh, fucking hell. Oh god, what did I just read? Also, you're going to have to get ready to paint a hell of a lot of minis. You can't get away with just a couple of squads like you can with Space Marines or Custodies. Your average orc army is going to have at least 5 or 6 squads of boys. And then on top of that, you want your heavy armour knobs and all your tanks. So yeah, get ready for one hell of a painting session. Which reminds me, I am thinking about doing a noob's guide to painting. Basically for all those who've never tried it before. It is easier to get started than you think. Some of the more technical bits we won't be going into, but just a basic painting guide. If that's something you'd be interested in, put it in the comments. Right, on to the stupid. So let's get this out of the way. The stupidest thing about the orcs is, well, the orcs themselves. Collectively, they have the approximate intelligence of a soggy burlap sack, and that may be overly generous. I direct your attention to Exhibit A, the story of Warlord Grizguz. Now, I'll assume we all know what the orc power of War is, the power of belief that fuels, maintains and literally allows the orc machine to function. If you're unfamiliar with this, the TLDR of it is that the more orcs believe in something, the more likely it is that something will be true or false, like Red going faster, and so on. It's been talked about to death on every single LoreTuber channel, and I'm saving it for an orc deep dive at some point, so moving on. So long story short, Grizguts and his warband accidentally went back in time using warp shenanigans and ran into younger versions of themselves. This was great news for Grizzy the Great Green Glizzy, as he had a firearm that he was quite fond of, and he decided the only thing better than one of them would be two, and did the only thing a sensible orc could do in his position. He engaged in open hostilities with himself in order to steal his own gun. Confusing, I know, but bear with me, the stupid gets deeper. The best perspective I've ever heard to this story was when one of my friends asked another, how come they didn't cause a paradox and destroy the fabric of reality? And another of my friends coolly said, because the power of the WoW works both ways. Anything they understand and believe to be true holds true. Anything they are too dumb to understand just isn't a problem for them. So, he positioned that the only reason they lived long enough to kill each other was in the following confusion is because they didn't know or care what a paradox was. It's not a canon perspective, but it's a fun thought experiment to help understand how the Orcs' stupidity is so immense that it's a super weapon unto itself. The Orcs are also involved in one of the biggest lore disappointments in the entire setting, ironically by not being involved in it at all. I'm referring to, of course, the incredibly disappointing demise of Commissar Sebastian Yarrick, the hero of Hades' Hive and the best frenemy of Ghazghkull himself. Now, we'd all have been waiting eagerly forever for what seemed like the inevitable final face-off between these titanic legends of 40k. It was supposed to be our Holmes versus Moriarty. In that moment, they were each other's white whale, and Games Workshop had made sure we were all standing at half-mast for them to finish each other off. The greatest rivalry in the entire 35-year run of the franchise ended abruptly when Yarrick was killed off-page by Angry Angron, the angriest of the angry. My disappointment was immeasurable, and my day was ruined. Yeah, it was a bit of a shit come down, wasn't it? Definitely an anticlimax. What had possessed Games Workshop to make the decision? Did they get all COVID-19 and suffer from a spontaneous shared episode of brain swelling? The timing would line up. I'm still bitter about the whole thing, obviously. The last stupid thing, and the ultimate point on our list today, is a riddle at the heart of the Orc species. Just like the questions of who's the boss, or is Nicolas Cage a good or bad actor, this riddle has no answer. I've spent years researching into the subject and arguing at length with peers, yet come to no clear consensus on this simple yes or no question that's plagued me for almost the entirety of my involvement in this setting. Orc meat. Is it vegan or not? I mean, put aside your views on veganism for just a second. I don't care if you live your life sucking your nutrients directly from the dick off a cow, or if you subsist from scraping various mosses and lichens off of rocks. Just look at the question from a scientifically objective standpoint. Like, if I was to invite my vegetarian sister over for dinner, and she told me specifically that mushrooms were fine to eat, so I searched her a delicious orc bugoid, would I be the asshole? Oh my god, that's going to keep me awake all night. Thanks, Victor. Thanks a fucking bunch. The outro. I have to say, this was the episode I was looking forward to the most, till I started writing it, and realised that any one of the points I'd made could have just as easily gone into at least one other category. Yes, yeah it could, this is the thing with the Orcs. Usually stupid, but it's mostly dependent on perspective. As for you, dear audience, do you think Orcs are mushrooms and therefore vegan friendly, or do you think that the nature of the Orc prevents them from being anything but friendly? And finally, thanks for watching everyone. We know you've only got a finite number of hours in the day, so we appreciate that you're willing to spend some of them with us. As always, don't forget to like, subscribe, but most importantly, share with any noobs that could use a good Noob-Splaining. Also, don't forget to join the Discord. There's a link in the description. Thank you very much, and we'll see you in the next video. From me and Victor, take care. Oh, and if you enjoyed it, don't forget to buy Victor a coffee.
Boss, can we get another scoop of water?